everybody for joining this webinar today. Want to welcome Tagmarshal onto the section. They're a new section partner, and I think it's going to be a great relationship, and we look forward to growing it and using their technology to help our members and everybody else involved, and we look really forward to growing this partnership. But I also want to welcome Brooks West and Josh Borders from Franklin Bridge. They're joining us today to help teach us how we use Tagmarshal and their technology and optimizing their data to help with faster rounds, pace of play, and savings on labor and all those good things. We can't thank them enough for their knowledge and their testimonials here that can only help us even more. But I want to also remind everybody that we will be giving PDRs for this. So after this is over, we'll update those. We'll probably get those in the next day or two, so you'll see those up on your pga.org account here shortly. But enough for me. I want to turn it over to Bodo. He's a CEO and co-founder of Tagmarshal, and he'll be leading your webinar today. Go ahead, Bodo.
Thank you, Kyle, and thanks for the warm welcome. We're very excited to working with you and the team in the Tennessee section. And with strong partners like Franklin Bridge and a few others, we know that we can really make a difference to growing the game in your area and also making sure that the operations are run like they should be in 2025, and add some technology to make things more sustainable and make sure that not everyone loses their hair like I have. Also, Josh wants to know if he can have double PDR credits for being on camera.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Awesome.
Okay, fantastic. So my name is Bodo Sieber, CEO, co-founder of Tagmarshal. It's a German name, if you're wondering, and also my accent sounds a bit exotic, so you must excuse me. Much more familiar voices. I'm delighted to have Brooks West, the owner of Franklin Bridge, with us. Brooks, how are you this morning?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And the man in charge and the brains behind technology, Josh Borders, the head golf pro. Josh, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. Gents, we would love to get a bit of an introduction to yourselves and also the facility. And I was like, this looks a little bit like a photo from Sawgrass there, right? Not a bad final hole with a nice audience coming off the clubhouse there. Tell us about Franklin Bridge. And Brooks, if you'll do the honors, how did you get to where you're sitting now?
Yeah, no, Franklin Bridge is a really special place. It's the only 18-hole public golf course in Williamson County, which is the south suburb of Nashville. So bought the golf course from American Golf 6+ years ago. We're entering into year 7. It's just been a fantastic run. It was a really cool place before we got here, and we just tried to breathe a lot of life into it to make it what it is. My quick background is just really golf and more golf. I'm born and raised in a sports family in Mississippi, and got hooked on golf at about 13 or 14. Had, much to my parents' dismay, had quit every sport for golf by 15, and I got my first job at a golf course at 16 as a cart kid, and really never looked back. Played a couple of years of junior college golf, and then went to Mississippi State and did the professional golf management program there. Had some great internships at Belmead and some other places, and just ended up in sales. Did that for about 11 years. Had a great run there with Ahead and then Yamaha golf cars for 8.5 years. Just developed some great relationships. Maybe the most key one was with Larry Galloway and Pat Kelly with Advanced Golf Partners. They're longtime Tagmarshal clients, and so just they breathed life into me and confidence for me to step out on my own and buy the golf course in 2018 and 19. And it's been a really, COVID happened, and the golf boom of my lifetime maybe secondary to Tiger, but this is a different kind of boom, so it's certainly feels more sustainable. It's more cultural and less, centered around one figure. So yeah, I just kind of feel like everything I've ever done has prepared me for this. But I don't know what to do most of the time. So yeah, it's been an incredible run. I'm just really, really grateful for all of it.
Yeah, thanks for the fantastic intro, and we love hearing a good golf story that started somewhere handing out bags and staging carts, right? It's there's many of those, and some, yeah, obviously from our side we've seen a lot of fantastic managers with similar stories. So that's really when you know. Josh, before we learn a bit more about Franklin Bridge, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I've been at Franklin Bridge about 3.5 years now. So started in the golf shop, working part-time while I was in college, finishing up school, and I've kind of worked my way up. And Brooks has been such a huge impact in my kind of journey here and progression. And so yeah, I don't have too much of a background to go into, but just passionate about Franklin Bridge and what you guys do at Tagmarshal.
Um, Brilliant. And yeah, I can echo that. There's this amazing saying, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So you need lots of people influencing you and guiding you. And having worked with Larry Galloway and Pat Kelly and the team at Advanced Golf, I can see that they are amazingly influential, but also so willing to share, right? So willing to share their expertise and their passion for the game. And I can see, Brooks, that you're doing the same with a young guy like Josh, and I'm sure many more on your team. And that is a beautiful thing about golf and the community of golf for me. Yeah, a bit more about Franklin Bridge. What would I pay to play around? Give us an idea. How many rounds do you guys do? And tell us about what I believe is hole number 18.
Yeah, so it's a busy place. We did about 54,000 rounds last year. Kind of peak was 58.5 COVID year. So yeah, we average in that 52 to 55 thousand rounds a year. I see Henrik Simonson on here. I don't think his golf courses have done that many rounds combined for his illustrious career. Hello, Henrik. Yeah, it's a busy place. We charge around $100 on the weekends. We do dynamic pricing, so that can fluctuate. We pushed it a little high last year. We got up to 140. We kind of backed that down this year, more like the 106 to 112 is going to be kind of our peak rate in season. We do include lunch and a beer with that. We work really hard on a seamless experience. We've gone to Lightspeed with our integration, where we have a mobile app, mobile check-in. We're up over 80% of our golfers do not come into the golf shop. Check-in is seamless, go straight to the warm-up tee, never really touch their clubs. So sort of trying to, remove some of the friction of the golf experience. And I'd say the other part of that is which feeds into the Tagmarshal where we're headed today, is really just trying to, really rethink and reimagine what the golf experience should be like. My life experience has really been, and I'm on the inside, right? I'm in the cool club of, I have all the nice clubs and clothes, and I know not to bring my golf bag in the shop, and I know how to keep up on pace of play. But really, just golf as kind of a culture is kind of, it's got a little bit of a standoffish feel for whatever reason. It's sort of a, hey, don't bring your clubs in here. Or, hey, you need to get to the tee and don't fall behind the group ahead of you, and stay on the cart path on hole number 14. And you kind of get the gruff ranger, you guys are behind. So it's just sort of that whole standing in line in the pro shop to pay your money is just, very 1996. So we've worked really hard to try to reduce all that friction and make it a more seamless experience, and just make golf, more fun, relaxing dress codes, and really not having a lot of rules. And then the Tagmarshal communications. Yeah, 18 there is a really, really fun finishing hole. It's, you can see the clubhouse over there. We kind of call it the heckle deck. It can get a little rowdy up there with people taking dollar bets of whether you're going to get it over the water. So yeah, that actually was the ninth hole when we got here, and we flipped the nines. So
Right.
yeah, that's sort of the soul of Franklin Bridge: high volume, high energy. And then Josh has played a major role in us being more nimble, using technology more, being smoother, easier. We do all prepay now. Let's cut our no-shows almost out exclusively. Our member
Yeah.
experience with the app, they can book their times and see their time. So yeah, it's really just we kind of look at every touch point with the customer, and try to make it as kind and whimsical and fun as we can. And that's really what a lot of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, you said you can see the clubhouse, but importantly, the clubhouse can see you, right, when you finish up. And what a smart move to make that the
It's a
closing hole.
wedge, Bodo. Come on, it's a wedge.
Have you seen me play?
I have not.
Yeah, Brooks and Josh, I know that you have a hand in this too. Congratulations on your Player Development Award. Yeah, just tell us a bit about the work that you do there, and obviously wonderful to have you guys acknowledged and growing the game like that.
Yes, Scott Hassey is our PGA Director of Instruction. He's been here since year two. Kind of a Hank Johnson pupil. He's just done an incredible job. Erica Furhelm. We now have 5 full-time teachers. We just opened a brand new 1,500 square foot 2-bay teaching learning center. And it's really believed that player development is sort of at the core of our duty as golf operators. And we do all the things with Operation 36 and PGA Junior League, and that's just sort of the big talking points that everybody will be familiar with. But yeah, we had interactions with over 1,600 kids last year. Do 8 weeks of Nike Junior Golf Camp. So there's just a lot of layers to that we just feel that is part of the DNA of golf, is sort of giving people some either programmings or individual instruction. Just having those, not just being a place that does a high volume of rounds. We have a 15,000 square foot putting green and a chipping area. Just try to have things that the typical public golf course might not have in order to widen that funnel, and make more people have more touch points to the game.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And everything that you guys do is by design, right? And also there's a very clear and distinct flavor of incremental improvement, right? And that you keep looking for ways to get better. And on that note, you also got another award that you didn't even know was coming your way, and that is a Tagmarshal Best Newcomer. So for us, we have now, it'll be mid-year, it'll be 700 partner courses, and we benchmark them according to data. And yeah, to be the best newcomer in a tight field with lots of high performers, is great. And that's purely based on data and what you're able to deliver. So this one goes to Josh in many respects, and obviously how it enables the team. But yeah, it's again, it speaks to the quality of operation that you guys run, and well done for that. Let me quickly jump into Tagmarshal. Yeah, like I said, I'm German born and raised, so you can rely on 2 things: that we're good about efficiency and we don't have a sense of humor. But importantly, we have an amazing team, right? And our team is mostly based out of Atlanta. A lot of them would have had touch points with you. I know that your customer success hero is Jack, and Joey Walters, our GM, is on site with you multiple times, and also David Hamilton, who's well known in the golf community, always keeps tabs. For us, it's obviously amazing to work with some of the very, very best. There's your Pinehurst, your Valhallas, this year's Open Championship host Royal Portrush. And yeah, we've added Franklin Bridge to that illustrious group here, but it's probably 50 of the top 100 courses. And amazing for us to learn from them and have multi-year partnerships. I mean, they push the boundaries, but the majority of our golf courses that we work with are Franklin Bridge and the good private club down the road that is trying to do things better this year than they did last year, right? And that's obviously where technology makes a big difference. And one thing I want to mention from a recent NGCOA event, I know, Brooks, you're quite involved with the Golf Course Owners Association. There was a question asked in one of the breakout rooms. So what did you learn and how can technology help you? And one of the managers stood up and said, like, I've learned that I need to learn about new technology so that I can teach my team, right? And I was like, I don't agree with that, right? So the way I think about it is you need to identify opportunities for technology and let your team run with it. And I think that is what you're doing at Franklin Bridge, like, because somebody who's 30 years old and has lived their life on their iPhone is much quicker in dialing in technology than somebody who's 55, right? And I know, Brooks, take nothing away from your ability to learn, but this is just a smart way of playing your resources to your strengths, right? And I really think that you've done this well, and I would encourage operators to think about it that way, because there's an amazing generation of new assistants coming up, and if you give them the right tools, they will make your operation successful. Here's the famous bridge that is part of your logo and part of your name. Let me just jump to Josh, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, and we're going to launch a quick poll. Josh, if you're looking at this list of player experience factors, course design, conditioning, clubhouse and amenities, place and flow of play, playing partners, tee time availability, accessibility, cost value, which ones are the three that you think are the most important?
Yeah, I'm going to go with course conditioning. I think pace and flow of play, at least in the daily fee world, is very important. And then value/cost are my top three.
Nice one. And yeah, Brooks, you might agree or disagree. What do you think?
I agree that would be his answers. I would go with playing partners, who's in my group, pace and flow of play, and I don't know on the third one.
Just from a player's perspective.
I know.
What are the non-negotiable?
Course conditioning, I guess. That's number three.
I've launched the poll here so that we can get our guests involved a little bit, and I'm seeing course conditioning floating high, pace and flow of play, playing partners. Yeah, I think we are neck on neck here with pace and flow. It's always great to read the room a little bit, right? But also think about it, right? What are the things that players want? And then we need to think back, what do we invest in as operators, right? Are we getting that right? Are we investing in the right things that are important to players? I'm going to end the poll here. It's probably a bit unfair because some of you are still thinking. Yeah, but it was fun anyway. So we have course conditioning, pace and flow, and playing partners as the top three in no particular order. I would argue that value and cost, if you get those things right, that's effectively what it means, right? So let's see what the research says. And the USGA has done extensive research on that. Obviously, they're the custodians of the game. And they found that the majority of players rate course conditioning as number one experience factors. Playing partners, this is where you started, Brooks, number two. And pace of play, pace and flow of play, 74% of players saying that's critical. Yeah, to top that off, the NGCOA's publication where they do this industry pulsing, they found that 84% of operators consider pace a top three area to invest in, and that's certainly something that you guys live by. Let me jump into one more bit of research. So we have been part of the research here that was compiled by the USGA and the University of Wisconsin Scout, and one of the heroes of this is Professor Chris Schoonover from the University of Wisconsin, but she's also the head of golf operations at Erin Hills that is hosting the Women's Open this season. So she's wearing both hats, and they really dug deep into what are the experience factors in golf, doing basically a whole year of data gathering and doing it at multiple facilities of all types, private, daily fee, high end, mid-tier, low end. walking, cart, anything goes, right? And obviously quizzing thousands of players along the road. And they found that there's 1,000 touch points in the player journey. Brooks, you already spoke about the player journey earlier, and that you're putting a lot of effort into looking for ways to design this and keep improving it. And they found that the bottom rated ones, which is the perfect frustrators, are pace related, right? And that is corrective pace of play actions. Corrective pace of play actions is exactly what Brooks mentioned earlier, the old way of a marshal comes and says, hey guys, you're slow, get on with it. Why are you so slow? Move it, right? At the same time, other people's speed, if other people in front of me are slow, that's equally as frustrating. And there's already a conundrum in that. And then on the flip side, and this is completely outrageous, I think, is that the friendliness by the ranger or marshal is the top rated experience factor. It's a delighter. It's even more delightful than amazing conditioning, right? And close to that, information provided about pace of play and the expectations. And I do think those two are related too, because other people's speed, we're hoping, will be better if there's good information and good communication around play. Corrective pace, we're hoping will be better if the marshal is friendly. Brooks, how do you think about this? And anecdotally, you've obviously known this, and you have already put quite a few things in place that actually add weight to that.
Yeah, no, when I look at this slide, it's one of my favorite things in life is to have sort of data or experts validate what I sort of know to be true, but can't really prove or don't know how to prove. So that's what this slide really tells me, and that golf is an experience. It's social. It's people escaping, or it's a quality of life activity for most people. Even whether you're a serious golfer or recreational, there's a significant element of it that's that. So again, just the asymmetry, to use the word in this slide, I guess, but of the approach of the golf operation is just in direct conflict with the entire point of why they're there. So just this idea that I need to scold you when you're out trying to have fun, there's just like, huh? And I think that's why the typical golfer is so defensive and in general. And that, when we get into messaging, that's why we went with tag, and we believe so deeply in the screen and the way that you interact with the golfer, the way that you tell them that they're behind. I sort of describe it as like a tap on the shoulder versus a punch in the face, appealing to their goodwill, doing it with a smile, being cheeky, being, humorous in your requests. And we'll get into some of that. So that's what this tells me is what I believe, but don't always follow through on because maybe I'm not as emboldened as I should be. Yeah, and I just try to remember to be the customer. You know what these experiences are when you go to other courses, but we're so close to it, as operators. Just remember that they're not, and they are judging us, but compared to their other experiences at vineyards and breweries and other sporting events. So yeah.
100%. That's what you're competing with, right? In a way, right? And the standards are set high elsewhere. So I do think we need to take a step back and think about where's this coming from? Like, why do we have corrective pace of play actions? Why is that part of 1996 version golf, right? It's because there was no better way to do it, right? We didn't have technology to help us. It was just we needed to get people moving, so we put a person out there with some level of authority, and then we pushed and hoped for the best. But not an easy one, and then clearly the players are not in favor of that. And there's a better way, obviously. Josh, I'm going to ask you the next question. Here's another piece of research that looks so simple, right? So this is from the USGA's Golf Innovation Symposium from Players First. So they do millions of post-round surveys, and they found the three key influences on both restaurant visits and the Net Promoter Score. And remember, the Net Promoter Score is that rating out of 10, how likely are you to recommend this golf course in this case, it could be airline, whatever it is, to your friends and peers. And normally it's very polar as well. 0, 1 if it was terrible, 8, 9, 10 often if it was amazing. And if it's somewhere 6, 7, then I don't bother filling it in. Right? So either strong opinion on the bad side, strong opinion on the good side. But they found that 3 things you have to get right. Players want to feel welcome. There needs to be good flow of play on the golf course. Don't make me wait. And they want to meet on-course staff. On-course staff, why? Because I'm out there for 4 hours. This is your service, right? This is your world of experience that you're providing. Look after your people. Josh, my question to you is, how are you thinking about that? These on-course interactions. Is that something that that you pay attention to?
Yeah, we're putting a lot of focus on that. Obviously, as we transitioned to Tagmarshal last year, we pretty much only relied on the messaging features. And this year, we're going to add in kind of a new role, like an ambassador type role on the golf course, to be able to hit that meet on course staff metric. Really, just someone who, Brooks kind of calls it like a host on the golf course, someone that's just facilitating a fun and friendly golf experience while you're actually out on the course. We think is super important, and can kind of be that extra layer of defense when it comes to flow, so that there's a way to kind of package into one position. We at least hope that you could nail, feeling welcome, flow, and meeting on course staff all in the kind of one focused position.
And that a couple of points increase in Net Promoter Score makes Brooks very happy as a business owner, right? Because it immediately translates in revenue, return play, customer loyalty, and your advertising dollars go so much further, right? So this is really the meat of, are we getting it right as an operator? And it's fantastic to hear that you're thinking about it. And so with the introduction of our tech, you actually took some staff away that wasn't necessary, right? In terms of, from what I understand, you had rangers out on the golf course, don't need them, but now you're reinvesting in that because you can see the value. And that's almost, well, why would you do that? Well, there's massive business value in that. And I would love to talk to you again after the season to see how it's gone and how that's impacted you. But we're here to learn about tech and how that's helping you do things better. So let's jump into this section, and I'll do a quick introduction to the tech that we're building with Tagmarshal, and this is like 10 years in the making now. So we have what we think of not a GPS system, but a business tool to really help you understand the data, the variables, and what happens in your business better. And your business is out on the golf course. You might think it's in the pro shop. No, it's out on the golf course. That's where your business happens. You can never know enough about that. And obviously, there's lots of variables that make that tick. So we've made that our specialty, and we want to track data as much as possible and as automated as possible, so we can feed that engine for you. And that happens with both classic card tags that are hidden away, and obviously we can track walkers. But also there's a screen option, and the beauty about the screen option is it adds an interface with the players, and you can automate things even better, and also the players can self-manage their round. And I see that's a big theme at Franklin Bridge, where you do your online booking and your self-management to a large extent. And I think that's great, because this is also a sign of the times, right? We like the high touch at the right point, but we don't want to stand in line, right? So ultimately, then you get a live map, which is a bit like a Google Maps or Waze of what happens out on your golf course. We built this as intuitively as we can, and there's lots of underlying data to help you make better decisions. Here's what the screen looks like. I'm going to jump in with Josh here. 2 questions. The first one is, who have you got dialed into this at the course? And also, tell us what you see right now. This is obviously a bit of a story, but to help us make sense, because what do these colors mean? So who have you got dialed in, and then what do you see?
Yeah, so our entire staff is super dialed in on the system, all the way from the starter, who's making sure we're expectation setting before they go to the first tee about pace of play, into the golf shop. And then we have a role called a GEC, who's kind of a manager who deals with a lot of the pace of play interactions. So everyone is really, really focused on this, specifically the golf shop. they're kind of like the central hub. They have the most capacity to be looking at the system, monitoring, trying to be proactive. What you're looking at there is an overhead of Franklin Bridge, and you can obviously see where groups are. The key thing are the three different colors. So there's green, that's on pace. The 36 and 37 that you see in that orange is a delayed group, and they're being delayed by cart 33. That's the delayer. So that's one of the most brilliant parts of tag, and in my experience of using other systems and versus this one, is that it distinguishes between delayers and delayed. And so it focuses our interactions onto the correct groups rather than wasted effort on delayed groups. And talk about a frustrator. If you talk to the wrong group about pace of play or message them about pace of play, that's a ruined experience likely. So this really lets us focus our efforts in the right areas.
I see that there's a Lightspeed arrow integrated here, so we're pulling the player names across. Brooks, what would you add to how does this sort of oversight help in management?
Gosh, I mean, the first thing is that we went before we had a previous GPS company. We were with Fairway IQ. It was back of the house only. We actually I don't know how to pluralize forewent the third year for free, and because we were so ready to move to tag for their improved functionality, and then most notably the screens. And that really just has to do with the way that we communicate and just the visibility. So we went from before that we had 2 shifts a day of rangering, and that's a lot of free golf to give away. That's a lot of training of usually older guys and that don't typically have that softer. There's really no good way to break up with your girlfriend, right? So how do you tell somebody bad news? Well, there's sort of some of these inherent truths about the humanity that technology can really solve. And so I would say that the 2 things I would point out would just be the visibility of the operator, right? I look at this, depends on what I'm doing, but in general, when I'm locked in, I'm looking at this at least twice a day, 3-4 times a day. I love to use it to find a hole to go play with my 6-year-old son. There's sort of like all kind of little things, but from an operator standpoint, the targeted rangering, definitely lowers labor costs. That's an obvious point that anybody can understand. But I really think there's just more of like it's a way of thinking about how do I interact with the golfer experience, particularly if they are not doing what ideally I need them to do, right? The most awkward part of pace of play is not just how it affects the people that are slow. They don't know they're slow, or they can't help it because they're bad, but it's all the people behind them that they are affecting. Everybody on this call is an expert in industry. They know that. So these are the tools that we use to really have that visibility. The color coding makes it so easy to just glance at it and like target where your attention needs to be focused. I think that's really important for every level of operations, but it allows me as an operator to monitor those peak days and see how my team's doing. Are we missing something? People get busy, they forget, and you have to catch things early. Those are some of the the key principles of pace of play. And without this information, there's no other way, really. You can do Excel spreadsheets and do split times and all that manually, but man, this data is so readily available to allow you to target ranger, and then from here flows out all of your workflows, which we'll get into with the messaging that you send in that. So this is a beauty of you guys offer in the back of the house. I call it back of the house, so it's just sort of the transponder only. I'm a huge believer in the messaging, the golfer messaging, and them having that data and information, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, that's what's important to me about this screen is the ability to be efficient and smart, to focus on the most important thing. We just set this whole thing up with how the golfer experience and their pace of play and flow is the most important thing. And this is the technology tool to allow me to deliver on that consistently.
Thank you. And you mentioned it, right? Early intervention and knowing where to go. So what's the head of the snake, right? So our system really considers not only the grid time, which is you started at 8 on hole 5, you're supposed to be X minutes in, and you are out of position, but we also need to look at the other groups and how they impact. And also what we also want to know is, are you getting worse? Are you getting better, right? So here's your hole by hole performance. And you guys might look at the system and see a group is 5 minutes out, but they only went out on this very hole, right? So maybe they lost some balls and took a bit too much time, but they've generally been good. Do you need to intervene right now? Well, give them a chance to get back first. So you have a lot of information available that you can never have if you just do line of sight management, right? And the other one that we've actually learned from the tour, we work extensively with the DP World Tour and other tours that have less pace of play blow-ups. They want to see the gap time, right? Because every golf course is different and it winds in on each other, and the group's proximity changes the whole time. It's not a good indicator. You want to know the gap time, and you immediately can see that here our card number 33 and the groups behind are pushing in. So it's another way of looking at the information. And so what we also understand is that every golf course is a bit different in what they need, right? So we have actually made this entire system that you guys are going to get launched now in which we call a Tagmarshal 4.0, is a customizable widget. So you can push up, down what you want to see. You can say, show me this, don't show me that. So that you and even different roles within your course can log in and say, I need to see these things. I'm the starter. I'm the assistant. I need to do that, see that, right? So that we can really make the system work and do the hard yards for you. And you can do more of what you do best, which is obviously creating experience for people and building relationships. So you mentioned the messaging, and already it's completely different world. And we saw that earlier, a marshal saying, hey guys, your slogan, on with it. The players' brains implode, they fight back, they can't have that. Versus doing it in a friendly way, but also in a way that is backed by data, right? Because very often with pace, and we'll talk about that more, no doubt, is that perception becomes reality, right? Pace perception becomes reality. I had to wait. Well, actually, you're fast. You are pushing. This is a twosome, right? So you need to serve both sides. Josh, tell me a little bit how you use these communications. And also, yeah, there's obviously a way to do it, and then there's a time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we use the interactions and the messaging, I mean, every single day at the course. And so we obviously, kind of what Brooks touched on, early prevention and early messaging is kind of the most key element of this. But we also have really tweaked, and Blake, who does a lot of our marketing and messaging, has made sure that our, the voice and brand you get online or social media is the same experience you're going to get on the course. And so a lot of the messaging that gets sent out is sometimes tongue in cheek or friendly, or it's just never that like dogmatic, you must pick up the pace that you might find at other places. And so we've worked on that and tweaked the messaging, but it's central to our operation, and we always see it's just an immediate effect on the golfer, especially if you get them early in the round. They've had an interaction with the starter that sets expectation that, hey, you'll get messaging from us through this screen, and then the messaging takes place. It's an immediate effect, and we, like I said, we use it every day.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here, Bodo. To me, this is the most critical part of what we're talking about today, and that is the way that you interact with the golfer based on the data. So a core issue with pace of play is they either are unaware that they're behind, or they can't help it, which makes them defensive, right? So there's no positive there. And so what we've all experienced is if you go to a group and you tell them they're behind, the first thing they say is, oh, they either make an excuse or they say, well, I didn't know that, right? And then, you say that you told them, and then the next time in person, you're more stern. And then they're like, well, you never told us. It's like, it's this weird, like he said, she said thing. And that, what you just circled, to me, I think that's the core value proposition, is a visual of how am I doing to pace. Green means good, red means bad. And this works both ways. You mentioned the fast group can often be the ones that are the most pithy and negative. You know, they're like, this is slow. And it's like, well, no, you're a threesome and y'all are all really good. And you're just waiting a lot. But you're actually going to play in 4 hours and 2 minutes on a Saturday. This is as good as it gets. Relax, get more friends, get where you get 4 people. So it really begins with that because it disarms so much. So if you see that you're off pace, they see that, but without a human being telling them. So there's no embarrassment, there's no value association with their being a bad golfer or a slow golfer, or their perception of your tone or how you're dressed. It eliminates all of that. It's just fact. And then we so often see, and Josh and I talked about this yesterday, you so often see them, they fix themselves based on that data. Now, if you do get that problem group, it does empower you to go and say, all right, guys, we've sent you a message. We're now on the 5th hole, and they can't say they didn't know. They had to click off that message to see their yardage. So that to me is the most important part of all of this, is the way that accurate data feeds the on pace or off pace, and then how that affects the customer's perception of their experience. How many times have you heard somebody say, that place is slow as a 5-hour round? And I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was a 4-hour and 16-minute round. Now, I know you would rather play in 3 hours and 40 minutes because you play every day and you're good and you're fast and you suck, and so you don't read your putts, right? I know that's what you want, but that wasn't a 5-hour round. They'll write that on Google. Speaking of misinformation, right? Like this, if only Twitter had true data that we could fact check. But like this to me is what our jobs as golf operators is that gives us the real data to say, Bodo, come on, man. You guys are behind. We've sent you multiple messages. Please help me out. And if you guys can't help us out, we just ask that you skip a hole. You're just here to have a good time anyway. Why are we stressing about this? And it gives you that 3rd and 4th level of they have no leg to stand on. And I think that's super important. And it also communicates, because people look on visuals, right? They see that there's a hole open ahead of the group ahead of them. Well, they automatically think that group is slow. Well, maybe the group ahead of them quit after 9. Maybe the group ahead of them was a no-show. This data removes all of that human optics perception error that we all have to interact with as business operators, but this just minimizes that in a powerful way. So, you can tell I'm fired up. Like that is at the very essence of why we spend $30,000 a year on this. Like that's why, right? Like this system is worth it.
Thanks, Brooks. And just to close the loop here, so what Josh and the team are seeing is, here's a group that's a delayer, they're purple. Here's a group that's delayed. Somewhere down here is a red group, they're out of position, but they're not impacting anyone. Well, the player sees exactly the same, right? So this band down here changes color and it tells you are now 5 minutes out and you are delaying the group behind you, or it'll go orange and say you are currently delayed by group in front of you. So the whole guessing game and the blame game goes away because we know what it is. And the next thing, and this is something that Larry Galloway and the team at Advance are so big on, is competency, right? They would have taught you that competency in what we do here, right? So that you're in charge, you have the information, you know what you're doing. And this goes, I'm going to jump ahead now to that post-round interaction that sometimes there's a review on Google that says, it was a 5-hour round, I hated it, I want my money back, right? So every single round in Tagmarshal has a track map attached. So that's however many cards were in that round. So in this case, we can see 2 cards. There's a black trail line and a gray one. So we can see where did they go, where the geofence breaches, what were the interactions. And this is one of the coolest things I've seen, guys, because like, look, we obviously teach and train our operators to flip that script on the Marshal and position this messaging and the whole role differently. But you guys taking it a whole level further. I mean, look at this amazing message. Please keep doing what you can to get closer to pace. The golf course, the country, and the galaxy all thank you. How could you not love this, right? As a player, like chuckle at it, get on with it, right? And it's been a positive interaction. I'm actually going to tell my friends about that. This is when we learned earlier that positive range etiquette. Well, that is it, just delivered by technology. Really love that. Give me one example where it's useful to have this post-round information, even to look back at what happened last week, what happened 2 weeks ago.
The way I use it is just in team, like operations team meetings. We will go back and do kind of retros on the week prior and how we did from a pace of play perspective. And so this is the most key insight for us at our team to go back and look at, if a Saturday we had a bad pace of play instance, we go back and track it to see, what time of day, when it happened, what was our staffing like, when did we interact? Were we too late, too early? Like all those things that allow us to kind of continue to incrementally improve. That's where I use this. I mean, every single week.
Brilliant. Okay, we have 2 more sections to dig into, and it's my job to keep us on pace. So the next one is using tech and data to save labor hours and drive efficiency gains. And obviously, the labor market's getting tougher. Where do you find good people, right? And then obviously the wage bill goes up, not down. So how can we use tech to help us do more with what we have? Tell us a little bit about the geofencing. We have some of the setups here and how that also helps the players be compliant. Brooks, maybe you want to talk to that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have quiet tech Yamaha gas carts, so we can't shut the cart down. But we find I personally think that's offensive and too far to go. That's a debate for another day. But the geofencing, we have 4 holes that are always cart path only. They're typically small fairways where the carts are concentrated when you're high traffic like we are. And we put signage out there, and we have the geofences. There's beeping that happens. Again, it doesn't shut the cart down, but they can't, they're gonna have to hit with the sound going off. That just gets us 98%, compliance. You actually can see on our heat map that he'll pull up in a second, you can see the holes that are cart path only because there's no heat out in the fairway. So this obviously affects golf course conditioning. We just, had a flood. This allows us to go cart path only and really control it. We can set up notifications for what we call the GC, but your managers on duty, your rangers, whoever, to get notifications. You get those really sensitive days that you probably should be closed, but you want to let people play and make that revenue. This allows you to know, hey, that group on 5 is off the path. You could go out there and talk to them and say, hey guys, can you please help us out? And they're like, well, we didn't go off the path. And it's like, well, yeah, you did, and you can show them their breadcrumbs where they duck hooked it on 6 and went across the wet fairway. So, and obviously allows you to, control cart traffic better, making the golf course better. All of us, even Henrik and the private clubs, are dealing with more rounds than we ever have, which is more golf course damage. This gives you the data to help you control cart traffic, stay off of sensitive holes. If you do, a fertilizer, a pre-emergent app that you want to keep cart traffic off of, all those things that everybody on here knows about, this gives you the tools to do that.
Yeah, great. And also many clubs are now considering renovations, right? So we know that this data is hugely helpful when it comes to looking at where do players actually go, right? Where do they cut across that we may not always see, right? So it's really helpful, and especially when it comes to the superintendent being more informed. Are measures that we have in place keeping our turf protected? Are there any areas that get a lot of traffic that are compaction risks over and above what we can see? That's all helpful data. But data, again, that's the name of the game for us, and any good operator would want to know as much as they can about their operation. because there's savings and revenue opportunities in that. And one of the things that that I'd love for you guys to tell us is that 418 campaign, and I also want to again tie that back to the perfect delighter, that is clear communication around pace of play and the expectation. So tell us about 418. What's that about?
Yeah, I'll start it off, and then Josh, you kind of land the plane on how we use it both in the daily experience and then with your managers and your leaders on how you follow up. But I really created this idea of 418. I created a logo for it. It's sort of 4 hours and 18 minutes for golf, 18 holes. So it just kind of felt catchy to me. There's golfers would say they want a 4 hour round or less. That sounds good unless you're at a very short golf course with very close green to tee. That's almost impossible these days. So we think 418 is sort of that magic number between 4.5 kind of feels too long and 4 hours is unrealistic. So again, we could debate that and over a beer sometime, but we set our goal time at 418. We set the splits by hole that lead up to that, including the turn time. So that's sort of the ethos and the desire behind the 418 goal time. And then Josh can kind of land the plane on how we use that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely integral to how we operate. Specifically, nailing goal times and making sure they're accurate hole by hole is like data we look at constantly to make sure that if someone's out of pace, it's actually based off the correct increment of hole by hole. And then it's the management feedback loop of ensuring that there's follow up and kind of that retro is taking place on pace of play and pace of play incidences that we have both for the good and the bad.
So Josh, speak to average pace of play versus number of rounds over or above goal. I think that's something you're passionate about.
No, absolutely. But both are super useful metrics. We find that we lean towards using number of rounds over our pace as the most accurate measure of how we're going to actually hold our management accountable to pace of play standards. And so that metric is really telling. If you see 15, 20 rounds above our pace standard, someone's dropped the ball and we try to go back and pinpoint that. Versus the average, you can get the misleading just with the super quick players early in the morning, that kind of a thing can muddy the data, if that makes sense.
So firstly, I love this. The challenge that I foresee is that you're now getting so good in management, and look how you brought your entire season through in 4:01 and average round time. So this year that's going to be under 4 hours. So at some point you'll need a new logo and a new catchphrase, right? But what I love is that you're defining this as max round time, right? Saying, hey, this is the top that we'll allow. We want you to be quicker, which is not the goal time. This has got a very different ring to it, and I really like how you think about that. Normally what we see when we're looking at the hour-by-hour breakdown, which you can see down here, is that the day starts quite quickly, and then there's a bit of a hump in both play volume, but also the average round time. So you can see here the average round time is actually quite steady. But what I see is that there's this double hump in play volume, and this is obviously not your standard, and there's a very good reason for that. Brooks, tell us what the magic sauce is here and why you do it that way.
Yeah, when it's your money, you find ways to make more of it. So during COVID, all of our tee sheets were full, and so we looked hard at double tee starts. So we prove out that it adds 23% 18 hole round capacity. So we do double tee. We did it every day during COVID. We're now doing it every peak day. So Friday, Saturday. There's a few other exceptions, but our peak days we do the double tee. It maximizes 18 hole capacity. It's a little adjustment period. I'm happy to take a phone call or an email after this to explain how we do that. I don't want to bog us down in the details, but man, we found it to be so helpful. And the other thing that I think is so impactful about it, on a busy day, when you do single tee, there's a gradual slowdown that happens throughout the day. Once a group sets the pace, once your 8-12 tee time plays in 4 hours and 22 minutes, you will never that day get your rounds back down under 405. It's mathematically impossible. So that's on a double T, that resets every 2 hours and 10 minutes. It does eliminate the fast round. You can't have the rabbits at the front go play in 3 hours. That's definitely can't happen. You do have a turn time. But when you look at the macro of what we can offer you, I can tell a person on a Saturday morning, you're going to play in about 4 hours and 12 minutes, and this place is packed. And you can't promise that if it's single T, but you can with double T because of the reset.
So the capacity creation is real, right? And Brooks, I remember actually, and it was a very philosophical conversation almost a couple of years ago. You posted this question: anyone got any observations or ideas around double T start? And it was quiet in that NGCOA forum, right? So somebody said that, hey, don't you guys do that? And we are obviously active now, where 80% of our business is in the US. We're active in 20 or so countries, and in some countries that have got sort of peak season times, double T starts normal, right? That's just how they roll. It's culturally normal. The players know about it, not a problem. And they do that because they can drive a lot of capacity through it. So we had a conversation then with Brooks, is yes, here, and this is what we've learned, and we can put you in touch with a club or two that do this on a regular basis. And also our team built a bit of a matrix, as in course length versus goal time. There's sort of a sweet spot where this makes sense. Some courses are too long, and actually the ones that are too short, it doesn't quite work out. Or if your front nine, back nine are completely out of sync in terms of play time, then it's more difficult. But UCAS obviously is a perfect example, and the additional capacity and revenue that you're driving makes it very much worth it. And I really want to commend you to be brave and doing things differently and trying them out. I need to keep us on pace, guys. We have just 5 more minutes, and maybe there's some questions coming our way. I want to look at the data back end quite quickly, or quickly here with Josh. So this is a day where things went sort of okay for you guys, and you had 38% of your round on pace. You're coming in on your goal time, average round time, but you can see that achieving average round time, actually, there's quite a few groups that are over and impacted. So the average is not a good measure to hold yourself against. This one's much better, right? You bring in that day at under 4 hours and 94% of pace. That's very, very happy customers, and it's much easier to manage. And here's the one thing that made all the difference. Your team caught that one group that went out of position with 3 interactions, and then you saved the day, making those 3 teams or groups that were delayed behind them, bringing them back on track, and everything else is green. Perfect, well done. So you spoke about a retro earlier. Yeah, tell us how that is helpful to you guys in terms of staying on top of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the most helpful tool for tracking it and making sure. I just find that, like, whatever you track and make important to a team is what they end up prioritizing in their daily working lives. And so yeah, making sure that we review all this information is incredibly important. And it's exactly right. The proactive messaging on an example like this is it doesn't just change the 3 groups behind them, but it changes the entire day for the rest of the golfers. And so it's as critical to our operation as really anything else.
And brilliant, right? This is basically your season coming through at 4 hours 01. And please make sure that your marketing guy, who's obviously very capable, plasters that all over your social, because that's something to be proud of. So one of the things that I just want to add is obviously we have goal setting capabilities. That's something that Josh is alluding to. If you set goals and say, here are the trackable metrics that we expect from you as staff members, that's interventions or interactions that we want you to track when you go out there, or these are the key times of day we want you to keep an eye, and this is how we track it. That's how you get results. And one of the things that we want to understand is what's the hole by hole runtime, and then within that, how much time I spend on the tee box, which that is normally where the wait time happens. So this gives you and also your superintendent the tools to see, hey, why does this hole gone so bad? Did we have an impossible pin placement? What was it, right? And then do it better tomorrow. So there's 2 more data sets to talk to, and I know that we're running out of time, but this has been phenomenally interesting. Yeah, again, this is seasonal, right? So you have just a small amount of delayers delaying about 25%. And that is even though you're highly successful. So this is obviously what you need to pay attention to. So what do you learn from this? And how is it important to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, this one is the key slide to me. Just the one on the right shows you that about 10% of our rounds are over our goal. And if you go back, I'm not asking you to do it, but the previous slide gives the manager the data to understand what happened. And you do retraining. Hey, what did you do? Well, why didn't I don't see any messages sent to that group? Why didn't you know whether he sent them a message like that? Just again, it disarms the conflict and really puts you in a constructive playing field. And it highlights the other point, which is that you have total round time, but you also have amount of time spent waiting. People don't think about they know it, but they don't think about time spent waiting. But that's the thing that actually negatively impacts them. So that's one of my favorite things about Tagmarshal's core ideology is this idea of who is the delayer and who is the delayed. That is a drastic difference. If you go tell a group to speed up that's been waiting on every hole, we've all done it. We've all said the wrong thing to the wrong group. You're going to piss them off. And there's no way you with this data, you can't say the wrong thing, not based on data. You can't make a misjudgment there. So that's what this means.
Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned the hole by hole time. So here's your hole by hole run times, and you can immediately see that some of your holes actually giving you breathing space because they're coming through faster than the setup, right? So this is something you can dial in, and we also recommend that you do that on a regular basis. Again, there's 9 minutes in this, right? Which is a tee time, actually, right? So the challenge that I would set to you for you guys is look at capacity opportunities into the new season, because why not? Like you're so on top of management now. That is the next level of dial-in. And the other opportunity is, well, how can we use that interfacing to drive more business? What thoughts do you have around communication here and maybe running ads, either internal or also getting some dollars from advertisers who may want to talk to your golfers?
Yeah, we're gonna launch. This is one of the things that we haven't gotten to yet. We definitely believe that there's some nice revenue here for both outings and just member event experience. The ability to message on every level for geofencing, for turf care projects, for Carpath only, for messaging of upcoming events, selling sponsorships for outings. There's so many tools that this provides you to utilize.
Yeah, we're seeing this often that this is obviously a revenue opportunity, right? But often course operators, they don't have time to go and deal with local advertisers. So we actually have a media division that brings you national advertisers that want to get in front of your golfers, and they're nicely aligned with the game of golf, right? So this is another option to just open some revenue taps. Lastly, and thanks everyone for sticking with us. I know we're 4 minutes over, but it's been worth it. What's the player response to the technology? What are they saying? Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, this one's they love the screen. I think that for them, it's the GPS yardage. For a while, I sort of thought it was antiquated to have GPS yardage when everybody has devices, but I think there's just a slow push away from their phone. This gives you the opportunity to see yardage without having to get your phone out. So I really think that that's helpful. They do like the two-way messaging. They can say, "Hey, I left my 7-iron back on the par 3," and then you can, it gives you an opportunity for them to talk to you. I've got a guy that needs to leave early. Can you send someone out to get them? Just things like that. Those are the things that the players like.
Nice. So with the Lightspeed integration, you guys can actually look at doing food pre-orders for halfway, and that's all of these things are incremental, right? But they're also obviously a convenience for the players. So then you can have food orders straight from the device. At the 8th hole, food's ready when they roll into the halfway. So those sort of things are for you guys to explore this season and work with our team. One of the things that we've just launched is a new learning management system. So these things that we're talking about is all there, nicely explained, little videos, so that whoever on your team needs to learn, they can do it in their own time. You can also task them, hey, I expect you to spend 45 minutes learning, and by the end of the week, I want to see that you've done it, right? So they're upgrading themselves, and then obviously that helps your operation. So we've made that a bit easier. So it's not Brooks needing to learn everything and then passing it on. But there's technology helps you do things better. Gents, I want to thank you so much for your time. As I mentioned, we're available from our Atlanta HQ. A bunch of really good people that I have here as team members. I'm very grateful to them. And fantastic partners like yourself. So thanks to you guys, and thanks to the Tennessee section as well for hosting us. Like I said, or like we said earlier, PDR credits on your way. Brooks, any passing final thoughts for our 40-odd people that we have online with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm available for follow-ups. That if anybody would like, my information's not up there, but I'm pretty easy to find. Brooks at franklinbridgegolf.com. So yeah, I love to help people. There's been so many people that have helped me. Yeah, and I would also just say to surround yourself by people that have skills and that you don't have. Josh Blake is not on here, but the team I have here is really young and inexperienced, and I love that. I love the ideas they bring. I love the fresh perspective, especially when it comes to systems and operational efficiencies and things that typically the operator may not be as skilled or as focused on. So I just would really encourage you to hire really strong people and empower them and let them go, because they'll do things that you wouldn't otherwise get done.
Lovely. Trust them, get out of the way. Josh, you know that you can't be best newcomer this year again, right? So you need to set your standards high, and we want to see you win a Platinum Tagmarshal Award alongside Bandon Dunes and Pinehurst and those high performers, right?
Woo!
And I
love it. That's the goal.
Nice one. Okay, gents, thank you so much, and have a wonderful season. Look forward to you breaking records again, and I hope there's lots of good weather that you can get lots of good rounds in, and a few less floods to contend with, and that we still have a bridge when we talk again next season. Thank you guys, and that's been a fantastic education session.